The final weekend of racing in McLaren Trophy Europe, and here we are under sunny skies in Barcelona. Championship was sewn up yesterday in favour of Gonzalo de Andres and his new co-driver Alejandro Gapet, but we've got one more race to look forward to, and in perfect conditions. Bone dry, the circuit, after a rather rain-affected race yesterday. David Addison and Tommy Erdos looking forward to the drama that's before us. 15 minutes of racing, and we will have the cars off on that formation lap very shortly. Great circuit, Tommy, this, for pros, for AMs. It's a busy circuit for testing, and it gave us an intriguing race yesterday.
Yes, what a great race we had. Not very Spanish weather, but it was something that especially the bronze drivers had to deal with very difficult conditions. The track started very greasy. Adalberto had an issue there at the start, but then recovered. That's Adalberto Batista for the SMC crew, number 7. But yeah, they really had to deal with the worst conditions, and the pros had it all easy on the second half of the race.
Now, the pros start today, but the way that this championship works out, it does put the emphasis on the AM driver. In other words, the AM has to do the bulk of the driving. So the pros will go first, but it's a 50-minute race. They don't get much time relative behind the wheel.
That's right, David. So as you said, the bronze drivers do both of the qualifying sessions. In fact, they do the bulk of the driving, from the moment that they arrive at the circuit, which is great, and makes it for really good racing. So yeah, looking forward to the second race. De Andres again on pole position for SMC.
Pit window between 10 and 20 minutes here. Let's go to the grid. Antonia Rankin is down there. She's got a whole scrum of drivers with her.
Right, guys, we're going to keep this tame. You're all on for P3 in the championship. How do you fancy your chances? And be nice to each other.
Well, until yesterday, we were really on top of P3. And then yesterday, we lost it all. So I almost start to cry now.
Please no tears today. It's a happy day. It's a good day.
I think the gloves are off between all three of us, really.
They are. Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, silk gloves, and we will do our utmost best. Yeah.
Well, this is going to be a really great battle, guys. We're really excited to see it. Best of luck.
I like the idea of the silk gloves. Fiona James in the middle, and she shares with the very quick Jaden Kelly, the Australian, who had a win on his own at Spa earlier on in the season. But that kind of illustrates, doesn't it, the nature of this championship. It's competitive, but there's a great feeling of camaraderie about it.
Absolutely. A great sportsmanship there between the three of them, and there's very few points between them. So the championship, or the third position in the championship, is certainly up for grabs.
So the pro drivers go first, as we say. The pit window, 10 to 20 minutes, and you can anticipate they'll stay into the end of those 20 minutes because they want to do the most they can for their AM co-driver. It is a standing start for McLaren Trophy. I know a lot of GT-style one-make categories do a rolling start, but it's standing start for these cars. And that was the undoing of Adalberto Batista yesterday. He made an absolute porridge of the start. Yeah,
but to be fair to Adalberto, in fact, I actually made a comment that he maybe didn't have enough revs on the engine, maybe due to the wet conditions, the slippery ground. But in fact, it was just a bit of a glitch on the system. So it wasn't Adalberto's making that, but he had a fantastic recovery. Unfortunately, had a little spin after that, but the number 7 car was able to get to the podium at the end of the race. So a good result for them.
So pole position to Alejandro Gapet. The time done by Gonzalo de Andres. They're the drivers that took the championship yesterday. They're Charles Voltzmann, number 42, in the car that he shares with Albert Jochems. And Charles Voltzmann had a problem on the last lap yesterday. The car took the checkered flag in the pit lane, not on the track.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not really didn't get down to what the problem was there, but they're back on full speed again for this race. And as you saw them earlier in the interview, they are fighting for third position in the championship. Albert Jochems, one of the most, if not the most improved driver this season, I think there'll be a sort of a trophy, if you will, for the most improved driver. He's definitely a very, very strong candidate for that. Really impressed with his driving throughout the season.
Now, what about this man, Jaden Kelly? If there's a trophy going for star of the season that we'd never heard of before kind of title, this is him, because the teenager from Australia has come to a new car, new format of racing, new country, new continent, new discipline, new team personnel. I think everything is new, and he has shone.
Incredible maturity, that he's shown throughout the season. Really, 17 years old. I'm not even sure he has a license to drive a road car, but incredible speed as well. A very, very fast driver, no doubt about it. But also Alejandro Gapet, now the newly crowned champion. He's been very, very impressive, like a real pro. And again, he's only about 18, maybe. I'm not sure how old he is, but is really some young talents here coming through the McLaren, as did Tommy Pintos last year, winning the championship. So yeah, some really exciting talents to look at.
So the future of GT racing is looking safe, isn't it, with these young guns coming in. And this championship's other selling point is that it sits somewhere between GT4 and GT3. These aren't slow, easy to drive cars necessarily. These are serious bits of kit that are actually quicker than a GT4 car.
Yeah, slow is definitely not a word I would describe these things. They're nearly 600 horsepower. And for next year, the Evolution car, the Evo Artura, will have 620 horsepower,
wow.
which means in normal format, it'll be 585, the same as it is, but they'll have a push-to-pass button, which is, I'm really excited about that. Really want to see that on the track soon. In fact, I think they'll be running on Monday with some prospects here with the new car. So really, really exciting news for McLaren there.
And the other news for next year is that there's an American equivalent of this that's going to be launched. So the European and the American scene will be built up. Let's look at the grid then, ready for this race, with Alejandro Gepert on pole position and Eric Behrens lining up with him at the front. Third on the grid is where you find Tommy Pintos and Charles Voltzmann alongside. Fifth, Jaden Kelly. And sixth on the grid, former British GT champion Bradley Ellis, and it's Duncan Tappy who is going to round out the Artura bit before you get to the 570s, where Ollie Webb is going to be on the class pole position. Then newcomer this weekend, Rafael Muncherath. Next up, Kevin Rohrscheid and Ross Kaiser will complete the grid in the car that he shares with Neil Langberg. That was the one that didn't get into the race yesterday. So Neil Langberg and Ross Kaiser looking for some good mileage, looking for a decent result by the end of the 50 minutes as the cars now work their way around this Barcelona circuit. It's a busy place for racing, for testing, for track days, and busy this weekend in terms of people here as well. Nice busy crowd on the pit straight, where not only can they watch the racing, but behind the grandstand there's a whole sort of car club area, automotive trade stands and so forth. So it's been a well-promoted event, this, and good to see the GT fans out in force. Right, now that car yesterday, the Ollie Webb started for this race, Ryan James co-driven car, won its class, took the fastest lap of the race outright, partly thanks to the changing conditions as much as Ryan James' bravery, but it also had some weird cutout problem, didn't it? Ollie Webb came out of turn 14, suddenly dived up to the pit wall, stopped, and eventually carried on.
That's right, David. They had it's a real mystery, that one, because it actually happened today in qualifying, I believe.
Okay.
And I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, they've got to the bottom of that. But basically what was happening is they weren't able to get downshift. They were able to upshift, but at some point the downshift just weren't giving back to the driver. So once they reboot the car effectively, then he would start again. Would start working again. So let's hope that they really got to the top of that. Really excited about this start, David, because the pro drivers, they're really patient. They let the bronze drivers do all the driving, but this is their time to shine, if you will, when they start the car. So really great to see these world-class drivers really battling out for the first corner.
Yeah, some with big CVs from GT racing, but the fact that you've got the likes of Tommy Pintos and Alejandro Gepert, who are what you might call the young guns, up against some of these more mature drivers, more experienced drivers, is always quite intriguing. And Jaden Kelly, who's just been an absolute star this season, will be another one to watch. So yeah, it's going to be a really lively first 20 minutes, that is for sure. So teams in the pit lane getting set, the drivers now bringing the cars up towards the markings on the grid. A bit more weaving to get some more temperature into the Pirelli tyres. And as they do so, then it is Alejandro Gepert on pole position.
One thing to note as well, David, this is obviously very warm conditions now. Barcelona is high attrition on the tyres, so tyre drag is going to play a big part. So these guys will push hard, but they need to give the bronze drivers a car with enough tyre left for them to finish the race.
At the back of the grid is going to be the Ross Kaiser, Neil Langberg car with the sort of pseudo martini stripes across the top of it. It's into place. That means the green flag can be shown. The lights go red, and the last race of the season in McLaren Trophy Europe is underway with a good getaway by Alejandro Gepert from pole position. He will lead on the way down towards turn 1. Eric Behrens on the inside. Jaden Kelly's car veering left and right as he looks for a gap coming down towards the first corner. Charles Voltzmann in the white-nosed car on the inside outbreaks Behrens, and it's going to be an SMC Gulf liveried 1-2. Jaden Kelly round the outside for third. That was brave. He's sideways. Charles Voltzmann says, oh no you don't. Gets into the side of Jaden Kelly, and around he goes. Jaden Kelly facing the wrong way. Thankfully he's not in the gravel, but that has turned him around and put into the back of the pack, and you can imagine the conversations in race control beginning straight away.
Yes, a very good start by Charles Wolfsman there. Very opportunistic pass on Eric Behrens, but then very tight there around turns 1 and 2 with Jaden Kelly, and didn't work out for Jaden Kelly.
No, but it makes it interesting for us, doesn't it, now, to see what he can do to fight back. He's at the rear of the pack, so he's behind the 570S models as well as all of the Arturas, and Jaden Kelly with the pin pull is something to savour in terms of watching him drive. So up front it is Alejandro Gapet from Tommy Pintos, the two young Spanish drivers then going toe-to-toe, and next in the queue will be Eric Behrens as they come now down towards turn 10. Charles Wolfsman is next in the queue, and Eric Behrens has dropped back into 5th on this lap. Let's have a look once more at the start. Jaden Kelly gets away nicely, looks for a gap in the middle, and that closes, so he switches sides, and then there's grass, so then he has to try to work out what he can do on the way to the first corners. Wolfsman up the inside of Behrens in the black car, and that produces a gap on the outside, so Jaden Kelly just goes for it. A little bit of a rub there. He's ahead, I would say, coming off turn 2 into turn 3. Wolfsman, he was never fully alongside, was he?
No, that look from this angle, that potential touch there from Wolfsman into the back end of Jaden Kelly, but of course we need to look at all angles on this one.
Yeah, Tommy wears 2 hats in this because he's also the driving standards advisor as well as being the expert up here, but that might well be delaying your flee to the airport later on in the evening.
It's definitely one for the steward's room, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So Jaden Kelly, 9th now. He's got himself back past Rafa Munsharath and also Kevin Rawscheid, but we'll see what progress he can make in these 20 minutes before he has to give that car over to Fiona James. There is number 7 then, Tommy Pintos, in pursuit of Alejandro Gapet, and Charles Wolfsman in 3rd place, lapping a little bit quicker at the minute, going faster within the first sector. Now, it may do him little good if there is a penalty heading his way, ultimately, but right now Wolfsman looks quick, and there is Jaden Kelly. He's almost now up onto the tail of Ross Kaiser, out of the same team, but in a different model. It's Artura catching a 570S.
Yeah, I don't think Kaiser will make it difficult for Jaden to come through. Great to see, by the way, Ross Kaiser there. Didn't race yesterday. The car put into the pits on race 1. But yeah, looking forward to a prospect of seeing Ross Kaiser against Ollie Webb at some point in the race.
Yeah, that'll be good, won't it? Because they're not that far apart. Ollie Webb up the road by about 0.8 of a second. They're in the red car, and a big lock-up by Eric Behrens at the end of the back straight. Now, that car has tumbled down the order, hasn't it? Eric Behrens was 2nd on the grid, and he's now not only down in 6th, but it's a distant 6th, and he's having to work hard to fend off the 570S models. I know that Ollie Webb is quick, but the Artura is, in theory, the quicker car, so Behrens has hemorrhaged time early on.
And by the way, that interview we had at the beginning of the race with the 3 guys who are fighting for 3rd position, in fact, Behrens mathematically could get to 3rd position. So this is really disastrous for Behrens at the beginning of the race.
Right, so he's going to try and dig deep here, but I just wonder whether that car's got some little issue. We've got there, look, in the rear of the car shot, that was Jaden Kelly up alongside Ross Kaiser, and it's now Jaden Kelly ahead of Ross Kaiser as they come down to turn 1. So black car Eric Behrens, red car Ollie Webb. That's Artura versus 570. Another Artura behind of the charging Jaden Kelly. 570S next up, 9th place of Ross Kaiser as the cars now work their way in towards turn 3. The road starts to climb a little bit at this point. Then they've got that run along the straight towards turn 4. And eventually, there's a bit of a downhill to come. 0.11 of a second split Gapet from Pintos up the road for the race lead, with Charles Wolfsman 3rd, and although he looked good early in the lap in sectors, the lap time was actually no better than those ahead, so he's plateaued a little bit right now. That's Alejandro Gapet, and in the other SMC, Emilio de Villota Jr. run car, you've got Tommy Pintos. Now 4th, look at this, Bradley Ellis there, and Duncan Tappy behind him. They had a good battle at the end of yesterday's race, carrying on as if they'd not been to bed.
Yeah, again, these guys are really, really exciting to watch. Tappy and Alice, they'll really run very close all the way until the pit stops. Just to remind the viewers, the pit stops will come between 10 and 20 minutes. Still plenty of racing to go. Absolutely right.
And then you put the AMs in, so the pro needs to give them the best possible chance. Duncan Tappy will give way to Ron Trenker. Bradley Ellis will give way to Klaus Halsig. That is the car that Bradley Ellis drives as he comes out of turn 13. They're not that far behind Charles Wolfsman, who, having had that good push earlier on, has now fallen away from the 2 leading Gulf liveried cars. You can see what the gap is as they come up over the timing line. So Gapet to Pintos, 1.5 seconds, but Pintos to Wolfsman now 2.7 seconds.
Yes, and Bradley Ellis there under a lot of pressure from Tapia, going a little bit wide there out of turn 13. Turn 13. That's one of the hot spots for track limits here, so really he needs to watch out on that.
He does indeed, and the warnings are already coming for track limit abuses. Some to Ollie Webb, others for Tommy Pintos, and a 10-second time penalty is being given to number 69. That is Bradley Ellis for a false start. It'll be applied at the end of the race, but there, the orange car of Bradley Ellis, a false start. So either slightly out of position or creeping before the lights changed. The race director, Trevor Williams, applies the penalty. So that's not great when you hand over to your AM. You've got some explaining to do.
No, he's under a lot of pressure from Tapia now, this on top of it. So, you know, given that they have to try and save their tyres as well for their bronze counterparts, this is really not a good start for the number 69 car.
No, indeed. So Bradley Ellis running in 4th place. Duncan Tapia hasn't found a way past him yet, has he? Duncan, who made a name for himself initially in single-seaters, winning the Formula Renault UK title, but has been successful in sports prototype cars. He had a Road to Le Mans win at Le Mans one year. He was part of the Bentley factory programme in its early GT3 days. Demon golfer as well is Duncan Tapia, and right now he is in 5th place. There is Jaden Kelly up into 7th now, so he's cleared all of the 570S's. And he's also, in fact, now into 6th place. He's cleared Eric Behrens as well. Behrens' car, there's something not right about that, because it is just not being able to respond in the way it did in qualifying.
No, and his pace is not what you expect him. He was very, very quick in qualifying and free practice leading up to the races. So, yeah, something not quite 100% there.
Leader goes by, Alejandro Gapet, 2 seconds to the good now. Tommy Pintos in 2nd place. Jaden Kelly's progress putting him through in 6th. Now, Jaden's lap then was a 49. Not lapping as quickly as those ahead, but you could argue he's been losing time by having to work his way through traffic. So now that there's a clear bit of tarmac ahead of him, chances are that he can improve that lap time on this next lap. There, 22, is Ollie Webb, and he's the leader of the 570S part of the race. Not only that, though, Tommy, he's staying on the back of Eric Behrens' Artura. He's not letting him get away.
No, that's right. Ollie's a class act, and he knows he's got 30 seconds to add in his pit stops as well for success penalties. So they've got a mountain to climb there once they do the pit stops, and also Moncharaz. I'm not sure what's going on with him, because he was very quick throughout the week, and but he's dropped back.
So the race leaders then working up towards the completion of lap number 5. And there is the confirmation of that penalty to come for Bradley Ellis then at the end of the race. Look to see Gapet and Pintos together. And a replay of the start, Tommy. And yes, the car moved and then stopped. So he was slightly over the white line by the look of it.
He was out of his spot there, wasn't he? And once again, another black and white flag there. Track limits for car number 60. Or is that his first one? No, he's had one before as well. So that's Kevin Rothschild. He needs to really watch out on his track limits. That's, I think it's turn 13, which is, again, the hot spot for that. They need to really keep all 4 on the tarmac, or at least touching the white line.
Yeah, the track limit warnings start to rack up. There are 2 already to Charles Voltzmann and also to a couple of others, one of whom is Ollie Webb and one of whom is Kevin Rothschild. So here, Voltzmann is being caught. Bradley Ellis taking Duncan Tapia along for the ride. And we are almost at the end of the first 10 minutes. So the notional window is going to open, but we know that the majority are going to come pouring in at the end of the 20-minute period, or as close to the end of that as they can get. So they'll squeeze 3 or 4 more laps out of this, as right now Alejandro Gapet leads the way comfortably by 2.3 seconds. Really impressive first stint, but Voltzmann, having fallen off the back of them, is falling into the clutches of Bradley Ellis there in the orange car in 4th place.
Yeah, they've all settled down now after a few laps, and Ellis now making some inroads into Charles Voltzmann there. So I think, you know, they look all sort of, they're saving their tyres. I mean, normally you would see the cars, you know, moving around a little bit more, but I think they're all very conscious about tyre degradation towards the end of the race. And so they've been, I think, well briefed by the teams to give their bronze drivers a car that has plenty of tyre left.
Yeah, the other thing, it's not just tyre preservation, but of course the bronze drivers are going to do a long stint, and it's warm weather. I know it's not the hottest they would have raced in. It's not sort of Misano heat that we had, for example, earlier on in the year. But, you know, it's still a physical car. It's a physical track, and it's a warm temperature. And for some of them that don't spend hours in the gym, it does take its toll.
Very much so. It's this is a physical track. Apart from the pit straight here, which is fairly long, where you can actually rest. You know, if you can rest at about 160 miles an hour or whatever they do at the end there, it's about 270 clicks. Yeah, so they have a very physical track around them at the back of the circuit, and a lot of temperature now on the track. And the thing is, the nature of these corners here, they're very lingering corners. So the load on the tires are it's a constant load for very long, and so it is historically a hard track on tires.
So the likes of Alejandro Gapet, Tommy Pintos having to look after those tyres, as you see Duncan Tappy there going down through turn 1. And the Greystone GT entry riding the curb. Duncan Tappy would like to get past Bradley Ellis, but he knows that they're going to jump ahead anyway with that penalty to be applied to number 69. So right now it is Ellis 4th, Tappy 5th, but Duncan Tappy's car is going to be in a better place really when we get to those pit stops.
Yeah, and yet again another track limit warning there for Brad Ellis in car 69. Yeah, obviously pushing very hard, trying to close that gap to Charles Walsman. Still hasn't really made any inroads into it.
Well, our first pit visitor as well, with the window now open, and it is going to be Rafa Moncharaz who comes in another of the SMC cars, but his is in the sort of powder blue Gulf livery rather than that darker metallic blue that the Artura's run in. The fight for 3rd, 4th and 5th then still together as they accelerate now up through turn 9, over the brow, back down the hill, under the new building, and then into turn 10. Hard braking zone coming up for Zvoltsman, Ellis, Tappy, those three running together. And then the gap back to Jaden Kelly, who is trying his level best, but he's just not able to get there, is he?
No, not quite. I mean, looking at his pace, it's not quite in the same pace as the leading two cars. Not too far behind, frankly, for on Tappy's in terms of Duncan Tappy's pace. But yeah, you normally sort of used to seeing Jaden Kelly lapping, you know, where the leaders are, you know, in terms of lap time. So he's giving away a good half second there.
So the race leader currently on lap 8, just started it. Here's 3rd, 4th, 5th coming over the lines. Zvoltsman, Ellis, Tappy. Half a second between the first two, 4/10 between the second and the third cars in the queue. So Zvoltsman not able to shake them off, is he? Despite his experience, despite his pace. Charles Zvoltsman, who is a second-generation racer. His father was a big sports car racer for many, many years. And Charles Zvoltsman himself, former Toyota Atlantic champion in the States, raced in the Le Mans series, 7th at Le Mans back in 2009, and an experienced campaigner as he comes then now up through turn 4.
I think he's doing a solid job there in 3rd position, the first of the non-SMC cars, I guess you could say. But he's, you know, if he maintains that position, come to the pits, and again, Albert Jochen has been driving really, really well lately. So they have a really strong chance of a podium here, and obviously getting that all-important 3rd place in the championship.
Eric Berkens has pitted in number 88, the black car that was on the front row of the grid but was fading, so I'm not sure there's much they can do in the pit stop, but they'll have a look, see if there is a magic tweak that can be offered up. And in the meantime, others like Jaden Kelly and Ross Kaiser staying out for as long as possible to help their co-drivers, just as Zvoltsman is doing here, just as Ellis, just as Tappy are doing as well. Coming out of turn 10 now, 36 minutes of the race still to go. Charles Zvoltsman accelerates his way up through turn 12, where Duncan Tappy tries to prise open the door, up the curve and all, but all that does, by Bradley Ellis having to defend, means that Zvoltsman's pulled away by 3 or 4 lengths.
That's right, it's giving some breathing room there for Sportsman. These guys are pushing very hard again. Once again, number 69 there, Brad Ellis, using absolutely all the room out of turn 13. He's already hanging on those 2 black and white warning flags for track limit. So, but you know, he's got Duncan Tappy behind him. I mean, you can't ease off, can you?
Nope, not at all. Tappy to the inside, feints to the inside, and Bradley Ellis will know whether that move is on or not. It wasn't a serious bid, I don't think, from Duncan Tappy. Just enough, though, to serve intent and see whether he can force a little error out of Bradley Ellis. The answer to which is no. But the car there, with this 10-second time penalty at the end of the race for the full start, that's going to play more of a factor, I think, when we get the YAMs, the bronze drivers, into the cars, because then if gaps do open up, it'll have a better impact on where that car's going to end up.
What's exciting about this gap, or this battle that we're seeing from Tappy and Ellis, is that both Ron Trenker and Klaus Helsing were very, very evenly matched yesterday on pace. So obviously there's nothing between them now on track, which will be the same when the bronze gets back in. So it'll be a fascinating battle to the end of the race on that one.
Well, indeed, yeah. The cars that you've got here are going to escape from any extra time in the pits as well, so the battle should be able to carry on unaffected, where Ron Trenker will take over their number 80 from Duncan Tappy. Klaus Halsig will take over the orange car. Now the window has got 4 minutes and 20 seconds, give or take, of it still remaining. The soloists, like Eric Behrens and Rafa Muncharaz, have made their stops, get those out of the way, whereas these double driver entries with the quicker driver in first, starting to run out of time now, getting to the end of those 20 minutes that they are allocated. So Jaden Kelly, one of those soloists when he won at Spa, coming up towards the end of lap number 9. The leader, Alejandro Gepert, will give way to Gonzalo de Andres, the champions, and another win would be a perfect way to round out the year, wouldn't it?
That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? I mean, also one worthy of mention there, Ross Kaiser in the 570S behind Ollie Webb. He's doing a fantastic job there. And bear in mind that Ollie Webb will have to serve a 30-second stop or added time to his car. Success penalty from because they've been doing so well, and also Neil Langberg, Kaiser's teammate, has been doing really well. He's just come back from America to drive the 570S again, and his lap time has been really encouraging. So again, it'll be a really tight battle there between the Ollie Webb's car and Ross Kaiser.
Yeah, Neil Langberg, I think in conditions today he prefers. He's used to the sunshine of the States, isn't he? So big grin on his face, no doubt, when he jumps on board that car. You're looking at 22 though, which is Ollie Webb, 7th and leading the 570S class. But like Tommy says, he's got this huge success penalty to serve in the pit lane of an extra 30 seconds. He and Ryan James, class champions, and it's good to see, although it's the older model, the 570S class having picked up over the course of the year. There was only those two drivers in it, Webb and James, that one car at Misano at the start of the season. But over the course of the year, more and more have been tempted out, and the racing has been good.
It's been excellent, really, and yeah, as you say, great to see 4 cars in the 570 class battling out. Muncharaz is in last place. Obviously, he's the first guy that pitted, so things will change once the pit stops happen. But a little bit disappointing in terms of his pace today, and they must have some kind of an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, Muncharaz was on pole in 570, for race 1, exactly. So he definitely has the pace to be up there fighting with those guys. So
I'm still worried about Behrens' car as well, because that, as we were saying, was on the front row. It was there or thereabouts in the race yesterday. But Eric Behrens has struggled. As into the pit lane comes Charles Voltzmann. Into the pit lane comes now Bradley Ellis and Duncan Tappy. And ahead also Gepert and Pintos are in. They nearly made contact, the two leaders in the pit lane, because Alejandro Gepert got on the brake pedal a bit sooner than Tommy Pintos expected. So nose to tail look as they come in. This is Bradley Ellis saying to Charles Voltzmann, go on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. But you can't get much closer than that down the pit lane, can you?
Yeah, it's Brad, ever the entertainer, isn't he? Brad Ellis is just such a fierce competitor. Yeah, every inch counts for sure.
In also Jaden Kelly, and we're going to have Webb and Kaiser and Rorschach in as well, because this really means if you're not in now, you're going to run out of time. So this will shuffle the order temporarily. It'll give us an idea of where Behrens and Muncharaz slot back in with everybody else once the final few cars return to the circuit. It's a standard pit stop time, but then you've got these extra seconds to add if you were successful yesterday. This is Rafa Muncharaz then, pole position for yesterday's race within the 570S class, but then he had to get his head around a rather changed track surface, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. But obviously a local driver here knows this place very well. But he's done some racing. He's not certainly not a novice. But yeah, great performance there, just coming into the championship like that and challenging for, taking pole position. So I'm sure you got Ryan James thinking about the races. And so yeah, we're really looking forward to the prospect of these two guys battling it out. We might still see that at the end of this race. We'll see.
So there's number 27 then, which is Rafa Muncharaz. He's not eligible to score points in this race, being a late entrant to the championship, and therefore it's really just pride at stake. The pit stops still cycle through for those that have left them late, and engines fire, cars make their way down the pit road. So Ollie Webb gives way to Ryan James. They're looking for a 9th win of the season in that 570S category, and there, first out, is the Adalberto Baptista car, number 7. And that with only 3 seconds to serve, as against the 7 of Gonzalo de Andres, now at the wheel of the car that was started by Alejandro Gepert. There it is. Gonzalo de Andres finds himself in traffic. Ron Trenker just up the road ahead. So now, interesting situation to see how long it's going to take, if he can get through, Gonzalo de Andres to clear that traffic and then get up with the leader.
I suspect he will get through there probably between turns 3 and 4. If he gets out of turn 3 well enough, let's have a look on the inside. Will he make a move just now? He needs to be careful there. So Trenka is obviously looking very racy at this stage. He knows that Klaus Halse will be fighting for that position. And again, there's a championship third position to be fighting for.
So it is Gonzalo de Andres, double champion now, last year and this, looking to try to go around the outside there to gain ground from Ron Trenka. Albert Jochems here has fallen behind Klaus Halsig on the pit stops. Gonzalo de Andres crawling all over the back of Ron Trenka, determined to find a way past. So a former TCR champion, Gonzalo de Andres, as I say, champion in this last year, but he's raced in the motorsport games for his nation. He's raced in touring cars, in supercar endurance, in the 24-hour series, so he's done a lot of racing, and now he's using all of that experience to good effect to have a go at Trenka.
Yes, I'm surprised, frankly, how long he's taken de Andres there to get through. He's being very careful, and obviously he wants to get to the end of the race, and they're still up in the running for a win here. But yeah, seeing obviously Trenka doing a great job keeping them behind.
And all of this playing into the hands of Adalberto Baptista in race lead now, because he has just gone across the line, number 7, taking over from Tommy Pintos. So Adalberto Baptista leads the way. There is the Albert Jochems versus Klaus Halsig battle. That's for second place, and Halsig in the orange car was ahead, but Albert Jochems is going to go back ahead as they come over the line. And Albert Jochems secures second place then. Down to third drops Klaus Halsig. In fourth place it is Ron Trenka, and in fifth place Alejandro Gapet. And off the road has gone Neil Langberg, is that? So that is on an outlap, and he's had a moment coming up through, where was that, turn 11? Yeah, he's got going again, but time lost towards the end of the lap. So Neil Langberg, between turn 11 and 12, getting it wrong, rejoins. As you see there, Adalberto Baptista, the football club owner, owns Sao Paulo Football Club, and another hugely experienced driver, lots of GT racing over the years, whether it's been in one-make Porsches or in mixed GT categories. He's raced in touring cars as well. Even had a spell in that electric Jaguar I-Pace Trophy a good few years ago. So lots of experience in that car for Adalberto Baptista. Now he's going to put that to good use and try and stretch that lead over these two, Albert Jochems and Klaus Halsig. Still arguing over second, but he'd like them to hold themselves up a little bit more.
Yeah, Adalberto there with a good break against his teammate, de Andres, and because de Andres really has been showing more pace around Barcelona than Adalberto this weekend. So a really crucial gap that he's got at the moment, probably about 5 or 6 seconds. And let's hope that Adalberto doesn't have any mistakes in this race. He's a very exciting driver to watch. He's got a lot of pace, but occasionally he will have a little spin, and that could obviously be the deciding factor for his potential win today. Let's hope that the number 7 car gets a good break in this race. They've been great competitors, and a little bit of bad luck over the season, but yeah, doing very well now, leading the race.
Yeah, they've had a couple of wins, haven't they, Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos, as here is Ryan James ahead of the chasing 570S of Herman Josef Bacchus. So this is for the class lead, and the margin between them at the start of the lap was 1.7 seconds. It looks less than that now. It's the 5th or 7th overall, but for the class lead, Ryan James, who got the fastest lap of the race outright yesterday. And tell me, did he go on about it in the hospitality unit afterwards, showing the result sheet to anybody who would care to listen?
I didn't witness any of that,
really?
But I would have done it if it was me. Yeah.
Absolutely right, because it was quite an achievement, that. Yes. Right, things are getting worse for Klaus Halsig. Not only have they got a 10-second penalty for a full start, they've got a 20-second penalty for being short on the pit stop. So Klaus Halsig's car number 69 ultimately gets half a minute's worth of penalties now. And that's going to drop that way down the order. As really wide there goes Ryan James, and that opens the door for Herman Bacchus to go through on the inside. Seldom would he have had a place given to him quite so easily. A little mistake by Ryan James, though, as he got on the power and the car just sort of kicked out wide. So change of lead in the 570 element of the race. And Ryan James trying to fight back, but after that gear shift issue you were talking about yesterday, let's hope it's not the start of something more sinister. There is Rafa Muncheraz now, up with Ryan James. So the change for second in the class is imminent.
Yeah, I've got to say, David, I'm surprised about Ryan James's pace there with Backus, because historically over the season he's shown a bit more pace than Helmut. So I wonder if there is still the remnants of the issues that they had. And but let's hope that he can still put a fight against Backus.
Well, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, that? Because up with him now is Munteras, who we were getting worried about earlier on. There's Eric Behrens in 6th place at the start of this last lap. And as he comes over the line, he's got himself up past Ron Trenker now. So that's going to put Behrens into 5th. Ron Trenker drops back into 6th place. Don't forget that Eric Behrens pitted early, so he's being able now to gain places over some of those bronze drivers. So it is Adalberto Baptista from Albert Jochems from Gonzalo de Andres in 3rd spot. And there is Gonzalo de Andres, and he's almost up with Jochems, isn't he? So this is the battle for 2nd place now. Down towards turn 5. And further back, Fiona James in the Alero car on the inside tries to outbrake not 1 but 2 570s. Well, she goes ahead of Rafa Munteras up into 9th place. And Ryan James, 570 for 8th, will be the next target. This was where he went wide a lap ago. This time it's Munteras that goes a little bit wide.
Yeah, you've got to say Ryan James struggling there with a bit of pace. He's definitely, that's not his outright pace. So the number 22 car there with potentially a few gremlins going on. And yeah, let's hope that Fiona gets through there cleanly into turn 4, which she has just about done. Yep.
Yep, nicely done up the inside. So Fiona James goes through. Bit of a twitch from Rafa Munteras' car, but he's now all over the back of Ryan James. And yeah, that car that was so dominant yesterday does look to be struggling for whatever reason. Ryan James' last lap was a 1:58, whereas Munteras did a 1:55. So clearly there is something not quite right, and I rather doubt Ryan James can defend this position for another 22.5 minutes.
Yeah, it's not looking good at the moment for him, is it? Looking at the times as well for the two, for the two SMC cars, Adalberto, although leading the race, he's giving away about a second a lap to De Andres, and so there's plenty of racing to go. Still another 20 odd minutes to go, and Adalberto really needs to watch that gap and potentially pick up that pace.
Yeah, 9 seconds between them. As here, Fiona James now having got ahead of Ryan James' car, the unrelated American. He's in turn trying to fend off Rafa Munteras, so Fiona James trying to get onto terms with the other Arturas, that car that was started by Jaden Kelly. Fiona yesterday ended up with probably the worst of the weather because she was out on slicks and then it all got rather slippery, but still enjoying her racing. And her co-driver, Jaden Kelly, is with Antonia in the pits.
Jaden, how frustrating? What happened?
Unfortunate. Such is racing. Happens to be that way sometimes. Going into turn 1, we were just all side by side. Bumped into each other, a little pushing and shoving. My wing mirror got a bit bumped in, completely then blinded on my right side, unfortunately. And then going into turn 3, couldn't see anyone there and just got tipped around, which, you know, nature of the sport, it's very unfortunate, but thank God the car was okay and we got to keep going, and it looks like Fiona's doing good work and we're going to finish the race. So.
Yeah, you did seem to make up quite a lot of time, but you weren't quite matching the pace of the front runners.
Yes, we were definitely struggling for grip at the back. The setup was good. However, I think the heat that's come this afternoon has really tested the limits of the car. We were slipping and sliding a lot, but you know, still happy. End of the season. We've had a tough run, but a great run overall. And happy to be here, happy to finish, but could have been better. Next time.
Next time indeed, thank you.
Yeah, that car of Jaden Kelly out of the Speedworks stable, engineered by Jeff Kingston, who has been engineering cars for ever and a day. I think he was first engineering cars here when General Franco was a boy, but he took you to British GT success or something like that, didn't he?
Well, we worked together at Le Mans, actually, in the Newcastle United Lister, so he was my race engineer then, so a very capable engineer, and yeah, Jaden in very good hands there. But we were talking about Jaden Kelly's pace at the beginning of the race. We were, saying that he's normally a second or so faster than that, so obviously there was an issue there with the car. But the thing is, these guys are now running in what is very hot conditions, and they haven't really been running in that over the weekend. So this is all very new to them. And again, the tires will suffer. I mean, these cars are very powerful, and there's a lot of power going through those rear wheels.
This is the replay of Jaden Kelly's incident at the start. Charles Voltzmann, from that angle, I still don't think was fully alongside, but Jaden Kelly in that interview almost giving Charles Voltzmann a bit of a get-out by saying, well, I didn't know there was anybody there. Mirror folded in, couldn't see. But Charles Voltzmann, I think, probably should have expected that line to be claimed.
Yeah, I think Charles went into turn 1 thinking that he had that place, third place. He had a very good start. I don't think he was expecting to see Jaden Kelly all of a sudden on the inside of turn 2. That kind of spooked Charles a little bit. But it looked like a little tap from the back into turn 3. So again, we'll have to look in the stewards' room what's going on.
So in the meantime, what's going on track is that you've got Rafa Muncharaz there ahead of Ryan James. That's a recent change for 9th and 10th places. Further evidence that Ryan James' car is not the car it was yesterday, in as much as it just does not have the pace. There is an issue. Ryan is doing his best to drive around it, but it's tough. And in a one-mate race, of course, everyone's got the same machinery in that 570S class. It just exacerbates the problem. Meantime, here is Herman Josef Backus, class leader. So Backus, who has taken that over from Kevin Rohrscheid. They've had one win this year, but a second would be a really nice, popular way to round out the season. If Rafa Muncharaz, though, can do anything about it, that'd be quite good news for the home fans, given that it's the Spanish driver, Spanish team. There he is, number 27, Rafa Muncharaz, coming now out of turn 10, makes the climb up towards 11 and 12. And Fiona James just up the road in that Artura, chipping away to get onto the back of Herman Josef Backus. She's getting there, isn't she? That gap is coming down a little.
Yeah, Fiona having a solid race there. She settled into a good pace, and you know, she got obviously the 570S in front. She needs to get through and get over, you know, to the chasing the next Artura Trophy car. But yeah, I'm just looking at the pace again for the SMC cars, David. Adalberto really needs to pick up his pace, otherwise he will be losing this race. It was 9 seconds a gap, now it's already 5.3, so he's lost 4 seconds over the period of whatever, 2 laps.
Yeah, it's coming down hand over fist, isn't it, between the top two, as here Fiona James ahead of Herman Backus now, so she's gained the place, and what that serves to do is not only put her 7th, but also now it gives Rafa Muncharaz a chance to go after the class leader. So Herman Josef Backus loses track position. But look, Rafa Muncharaz is not that far behind him. Backus' last lap was a 55.9 and a 55.3 for Rafael Muncharaz. So that could be on in the remaining 17 minutes. You're right about this lead gap, though. That is coming down markedly between the SMC twins. And some way back, Neil Langberg goes across the line, ready to be lapped by Adalberto Baptista. 27 there, Rafa Muncharaz just hooking a wheel over the curb on the exit of turn 5. So Baptista through, De Andres through, lead gap down again to 4.5 seconds, whereas the 570Ss are also starting to concertina. 3 for the lead pretty much, as Backus is being chased by Muncharaz. And look, Ryan James coming back at him. So that gap coming down between 2nd and 3rd in the 570 class, almost like Ryan James now is being able to drive around the problem.
Frankly, this is the battle that we've been looking forward to witnessing, and we can see now Muncharaz found a turn of pace there. Well, that's a little bit of talk about track limits there for Ryan James going on the inside of turn 10, but he got away with that this time.
All track limit warnings are coming. A big slide for Muncharaz, and the wall beckons. Headbutts it coming out of the corner. And oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That is coming out of turn 12 then, and Rafa Muncharaz gives Ryan James a free ride, doesn't he now, for 2nd in the class, and also gives Herman Josef Backus a free ride for the win. So really disappointing that for Rafa Muncharaz. Was that a driver error, or could that have been a fault somewhere in the electrics or something that caused the car to spit off, because Muncharaz was doing such a good job?
Yeah, always difficult to tell from this angle. Obviously he's back on track now, which is good to see, but they look like a case of a little bit of throttle too early, maybe right, losing the back end. But we'll see what happens there. But such a shame. We were seeing there a battle of these two guys who showed good pace all weekend. So yeah, unfortunately there for Rafa, but you know, it's his first race in the 570S. He's still learning the car.
So he's got it going, as we saw, and we'll soon discover whether it's going to be in need of a pit stop or whether he can soldier on to the very end. There's the leader then, Adalberto Baptista. Clear last time by 4.5 seconds. Into the pits, in fact, comes Muncharaz. So that's the answer in part to the question. There is damage. Baptista goes by. De Andres in 2nd spot, now 4 seconds back. The gap still coming down. Fiona James, in the meantime, is now up onto the back of Ron Trenker. So this is for 6th place overall. Fiona James, when she gets past somebody, it kind of seems to spur her on, doesn't it? She thinks, oh, I can do this, and then she is able to turn up the wick a little bit more and go after the traffic ahead, because she's caught up to Trenker pretty effectively.
No doubt about it. She's really settled down well into the second half of the race, and yeah, putting a lot of pressure there on the car number 8 here.
So Ron Trenker, who's done some racing in the UK in the GT Cup, comes up through turn 12. Fiona James, in fairness, is taking Hermann Josef Backus with her. She's not shaken off that 570. This is probably illustrative also of how well Backus is doing, but there Fiona James in the white nose car. That's Ron Trenker looking at for Greystone GT, up towards the timing line. 14 minutes on the clock still as they go by. The lead gap also coming down overall, but Fiona James accelerates through, and there the SMC team assess the damage. But interesting that they're looking at the rear corner rather than the front, almost like it was something at the rear that caused the car to spin rather than the driver. We saw the front hit the wall. It's not the front they're looking at. It's that left rear corner, as though there is concern over a breakage or something.
Yeah, obviously he lost the back end there, which again from outside look as if could have been a potentially just the driver putting the power on too early, but there may be an issue, you know, that we don't know about. But real shame there to lose Raphael.
Fiona James up the inside, and he's going to go through, gains the place then. That puts Fiona James up into the top 6 at the expense of Ron Trenker. So Fiona James goes through, and Trenker is under attack straight away, look, because Hermann Josef Backus goes through as Trenker got a problem. 2 places lost in very quick succession there.
Is it a problem? Is it fatigue? Could it be tyres? Yeah, we've got 13 minutes left to race. These cars are very physical in this heat, so these guys are beginning to feel it now, potentially.
True enough, yeah, Ron Trenker dropping quite a long way back in a short space of time. So 2 places lost on this lap, but also a lot of time lost to those ahead. Adalberto Baptista, Gonzalo de Andres, the top 2 experienced drivers, so they know about long races, they know about long stints, they know about the temperature as well. So to them, this probably isn't as much as a factor as it will be to some others.
Yeah, it's very true, David. And looking at the pace now, Adalberto has definitely reacted to that gap. He's sort of for the last couple of laps, he's been able to maintain that 4 to 4.5 second. And it's only on the last lap, certainly there was only about 4 or 5 tenths difference rather than seconds. So Adalberto there reacting to the pressure given by De Andres.
So down through turn 13 goes Ron Trenker. Now ahead is Klaus Halsig. Quite a long way clear is Klaus Halsig, but then he's got 30 seconds worth of penalties, Halsig, to apply at the end of the race. The lead gap has gone up again, by the way. Adalberto Baptista last time increased it from 4 seconds up to 4.5. So your urges are being responded to here. Baptista getting on with the programme. There's the man that's chasing him, Gonzalo de Andres, and the margin is in sector 1 a little bit down, and in sector 2 it's gone up again. So Adalberto Baptista looking for win number 3 of the season. Gonzalo de Andres in number 11 here hustles on behind him, and the champion would like to go out with another victory, but for the team a 1-2 finish in either order would be a pretty decent end to a great season.
Yes, if anything, it's De Andres is actually pushing him very hard and still not able to really close that gap quickly enough. We have another track warning limit there for De Andres. So at the moment, Adalberto doing a great job keeping that lead.
Here in third is Eric Behrens as he comes across the line. So the race has sort of come to him, and maybe we were being a bit unfair before because we were kind of comparing his pace to the pros. Eric Behrens is not inexperienced, but he's not a pro driver. He's an experienced AM. So now he's in the context of the true pace, maybe. Yeah,
so very impressive pace that Behrens has shown really ever since he's come back to the series. And you know, he's another one of those Scandinavian drivers. He can go sideways very quickly. Yeah. And, so yeah, his pace is very strong now. He has a solid third position. But also Albert Jochen, they're doing a fantastic job in fourth position. And at this point, I believe they would become the third position driver.
And Eric Behrens on target to be the AM champion within the Altura section of the McLaren Trophy Europe. So there are some happy people here with good results come the end, not just of the race, but of the season. So there is Albert Jochems, and you were saying earlier how much he's come on over the space of the year.
Very much so. He's been, I'd say, in my view, the most improved driver that we've had this season. Showed great sportsmanship towards other people on track, and Charles has done a fantastic job really bringing him along, and you know, just fine-tuning his driving all the way through every race, improving, and his pace is really, really good, very strong, and again on course to potentially get third place in the championship. That would be a fantastic reward for him.
And there's Neil Langberg, who is making the most of today's track time. That's the car running in 10th place. 69 there going through is Klaus Halsig, who is 5th on the road, but with half a minute's worth of penalties to be applied. So that's really going to nobble that car. It's going to fall a long, long way down the order. Fiona James is not that far behind, so I think she's going to inherit the place come the end. And that's going to put Fiona James and Jaden Kelly into the top 6 on corrected times. So we've got 9 more minutes of the race to go. Here is Ryan James, whose last lap was a 55.0, which is about right for a 5.70 pace again.
Yes, he seems to have gained some pace there and gone a second, 1.3 seconds faster than Backus. But is he too far away from him, or can he still have a go at him?
He is the best part of 8 seconds back, isn't he? So it's going to be tough unless Hermann Josef Backus makes a mistake, but he's done a good job here, having taken over from Kevin Rorsheid in that car. And with 8.5 minutes on the clock, there is Ryan James coming down through turn 10.
Yeah, and the last laps for both the SMC cars almost identical. So Adalberto doing a great job there and responding to the pressure from De Andres.
Both cars out of the same team and evenly matched drivers, both experienced drivers, and both with a young gun that no doubt we'll hear a lot more of in international GT racing in the future, namely Tommy Pintos to share with Adalberto Baptista and Alejandro Capet with Gonzalo de Andres, as there is number 11. That's second place car. That is de Andres up through turn 12. The one sadness in this is he's not really had to work very hard. He's not been able to catch for the race lead and have a fight, and he's not really had to fend anybody else off. So it's been a lonely stint for Gonzalo de Andres, but in fairness, he's not doing anything wrong. He is getting track limit warnings though, but he's not making mistakes as such. He's had a warning flag, and if he carries on like this, then the penalties may well come. But in terms of lockups or half spins, oh, there's a drama for the leader. That's Baptista down at turn 1. He saved it nicely, but that came out of nowhere. But that's a bit Baptista-ish, isn't it? That all of a sudden he has a little weird moment.
Yes, once again, Baptista there entertaining us with his little, I wouldn't say spin, but yeah, that was a moment for him. Definitely got his heartbeat going.
What do we put that down to? Driver error, driver fatigue, tyres going off, all of the above?
All of the above, potentially, David, yes, absolutely. All of those things were probably playing a part in what's happened just there. But that will refocus him on, you know, keeping focus on the track ahead and keeping it together. He knows he's only got it's under 10 minutes now. Well under 10 minutes, sorry, it's nearly 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes left of this race. So he doesn't have many laps to go, you know, call it 3 laps or so.
So Adalberto Baptista then at the wheel of number 7, accelerating his way up now through turn 9, over the brow again, using all of the curve. Let's see what that live gap is between him and Gonzalo de Andres as they come down towards us. It was 3.5 after the slide, so he lost about a second in that moment, and it's down to 3.4. So this is giving de Andres renewed optimism now. You can see the car ahead, it's larger, it's not a dot in the distance now, and that means that, I'm not suggesting he wasn't pushing before, but he's going to push even harder as de Andres now to see what he can do about catching Baptista.
Yeah, this would have given De Andres renewed sort of hope that perhaps he can get to grips with Baptista. But time is running out for De Andres. He really needs to up his pace, but he's hanging with these track limit warnings. He's got already quite a few of them.
Yeah, he's on 4 warnings now, is Gonzalo de Andres. 3 gets you a warning flag, and he's been racking them up since. There are 5, though, for the Ryan James Ollie Webb car. So that's the one that could also find itself in jeopardy. As through goes Adalberto Baptista, the race leader. The rest of the family all race as well, so it's a very busy dynasty. And Baptista comes out of turn 3. Gonzalo de Andres, yeah, 3.5 seconds back. So it's game on now with 5 minutes to go.
Yes, obviously lost, all of that time was lost in that moment that he had into turn 1. And as I said, he needs to refocus now and just try and keep that gap, at least keep it the same and not lose any more time to De Andres.
in the 570 class. Herman Backus to Ryan James, 7.5 seconds. So barring a mistake, I think that's pretty done. Ryan James with a problem, we think, of a few laps to go that compromised the pace somewhat. As they're turning through, Adalberto Baptista then into the final 5 minutes of the race. A lap time currently is a 1:52. Shows you the difference in pace, because the fastest lap of the race done when the pros were in early on, 1 minute 46.7, and now a 52.9. So the bronze drivers, the AMs, certainly not as quick. And equally, as Tommy's been making the point, now you factor in a bit of tiredness, the fact that the tyres are getting towards the end of their life within a stint. So actually, it makes life a bit tougher all round. You know, they've got to control a car that may not have quite the same bite that it did early on. The tyre themselves, the heat's there in the cockpit. So we talked about how much work, how much input the AM makes into the race result. This must be the toughest stint of all.
100%, David. This is, again, as we mentioned before, this is one of the worst tracks for tyre life, and you've got to praise Pirelli for this, because these guys are still doing 151s, and that's very good pace at this stage in the race, given the fact that the pros have been in the car hammering them. So the tyres are doing a great job there, keeping these guys on the tarmac. But of course, there's been some dag on them, and they have to deal with it, as well as the heat and the tiredness and everything else. So yeah, it's a big test for all of them.
Yeah, Pirelli, very active supporters of GT racing, aren't they? Whether it's GT2, 3 or 4 or one make series like this. And therefore, because they've got so many different tyres in different championships, they've got a huge amount of data to pull on to build the right tyre.
Oh, absolutely. It's just a huge amount of experience and knowledge that they have. And yeah, I mean, these tyres performed very well here. I mean, this is a true test. I mean, it's a bit like, you know, if you go to Truxton, British Touring Car, I guess. Truxton is a bit of a cheese grater. So it's not quite like that here in Barcelona, but it's not far away.
I'm not sure there have been many times where Thruxton and Barcelona have been compared against one another in quite that way. I'll take your point entirely. They're going through then is Adalberto Baptista with traffic up the road. Fiona James, in the meantime, is catching up to the back of Herman Backus here. So Fiona still going really nicely, 1.4 seconds back. Valero, you see on the car, is her racewear business, of which there are lots and lots of drivers as ambassadors, whether it's out of one make racing or touring cars or oval racing. And Fiona James drops down the hill, and I think on this lap he's ready to have a go. Look, she's almost on the back now of the leading 570 as they go down towards turn 1. The margin between them from 1.7 down to 0.3 of a second. So Fiona James ready to make a move here, Tommy.
Yes, and Backus there being very defensive. I think, does he realise it's the Artura Trophy car? But he moved over to the right there just to kind of block the pass. But of course, the little bit more power there in the Artura, you know, better sort of aerodynamics as well, which helps under braking and into the corner. So Fiona now, nice pass, clean into turn 1 and out of turn 3 now without any problems.
But Ryan James has halved that gap pretty much. From the best part of 9 seconds, it's just over 4. So as Herman Backus has fallen away, and we're getting a report of a spin actually as well for Fiona James. So she's rejoined, but it was an off at turn 10. That's why she's had to repass Herman Backus. But what this is suggesting now is that Ryan James is getting a bit nearer and his lap times are better. So Herman Backus may be starting to wilt a little bit, or the tyres may be starting to wilt, or both might be wilting. But either way, Ryan James, with a minute and change on the clock, is getting much closer.
Yes, he'll get one more lap after this one, and that's about it. So, yeah, time is running out for him, but he's still within, I suppose, within striking distance.
Now, where is the race leader? He's in the middle sector. And there's just about a minute on the clock as Adalberto Baptista makes the run down towards turn 10. There is the hard-charging Ryan James, desperately late on the brakes. The car squirming as it braked, and Ryan sorts out the slide. Gets back onto the loud pedal, accelerates out the other side of the corner. In the meantime, there the back has another big savage twitch coming up through turn 12. It's not helping the tyres much, that is it? And so I fear that in his zealotry, that's going to enable Herman Josef Backus to carry on in command of the class. But not for the want of trying, Ryan James is going to miss out.
No, he was really fighting with the car there coming out of the corner. So it'll be interesting to hear Ryan James, you know, after the race, see what transpired there. He's almost like ping-ponging through the race. You know, he has pace and then it drops the pace. So obviously that suggests that he's been dealing with something in that car throughout this race.
The race leader has just gone through with about 6 seconds to spare. So the leader over the timing line, Adalberto Baptista onto his last lap. Damage there, that's the back of Ron Trenker's car. Baptista to De Andres, 3.2 seconds. It's down a little bit more, but nothing major. Third place, Eric Behrens, who is in 6th place. He's actually lapped a bit quicker than De Andres last time around, but find some wood to touch. Here, Adalberto Baptista, one slide apart, has had a really good race. If only he could do this more consistently, but it'll be a 3rd win of the season, and he's heading home a 1-2, even though De Andres is looking a bit nearer.
Yes, De Andres, I think, realised hanging on those track warnings, he couldn't really push any more than he was. And but Adalberto did a fantastic job this season, really. It's first season for Adalberto. Of course, De Andres now in his 2nd season, as you said before, 2nd-time champion. So quite a bit more experience than Adalberto in these cars. But yeah, great job by both crews of the SMC team. And yeah, great to see the number 7 car there on top in this 2nd race. They've had a great season as well.
And a word about the SMC team. That's positioned itself as really the benchmark McLaren Trophy squad, hasn't it? 2 titles, 2 years.
2 titles in a row. I mean, you can't do any better. And what a nice guy as well, Emilio. The way he runs his team and you know, the whole philosophy that he puts across to his drivers. And it's a great team, great asset to McLaren to have SMC in the paddock.
Yeah, Emilio de Villota Senior was part of the Aurora British Formula 1 scene back in the late 1970s and did try to get into Formula 1 World Championship Grand Prix, did 1 or 2, and of course his daughter, the late Maria de Villota, is also remembered at this event. There's always a big tribute to Maria de Villota, who sadly passed away a few years ago. But happy times for Adalberto Baptista and for Tommy Pintos, because they round out the season with a win. They head home at SMC 1-2 as Gonzalo de Andres and Alejandro Capet take 2nd. The gap at the end, 1.3 seconds between them. But a great drive by Adalberto Baptista to hang on in there. Eric Behrens takes 3rd place. He's been a bit lonely, but a podium result beckons nonetheless. And that is Neil Langberg, who is a couple of laps down, but he's going to bring the 570 home. It's a bit subdued out of turn 14, as though that might also have an issue. But it finishes, and it bags points in the class. Behind, it's going to be Albe Jochems, who comes across the line for 4th place. And Klaus Halsig would be next on the road, but then with a 20 and a 10-second penalty to be applied for assorted transgressions. Not all of his making, in fairness. Bradley Ellis has a little bit of a case to answer there.
Yeah, but great to see Neil Langberg there in the 53 car, share with Ross Geiser, and on the podium there in the 570S class.
Yes, that's right, because we lost Muncharas, didn't we? So, yeah, they take 3rd, as there are the SMC twins. Carrying on from those Michael Caine run BPR McLarens in the Gulf colours of the early 90s. In the BPR series, which was the forerunner to FIA GT, which grew into what we now have with the SRO Motorsports Group of GT World Challenge. So there was a nice nod to the past that you can make to the overall event there. So here is Herman Josef Backus for a 2nd win of the year with Kevin Rohrscheid in the 570s. Job really well done. Pitted early, Rohrscheid gave way to Backus, and he has not put a wheel out of line. Fiona James taking 6th overall, just up the road. And we've lost Ron Trenker, haven't we? We saw that car with a bit of damage, but Trenker has not made it to the line. He's not shown as having taken the checkered flag, so I'm trying to work out where he's headed to. He's in the pit lane, so Ron Trenker, rather than limp round, must have picked up a bit more rear damage, and so Ron Trenker and Duncan Tappy don't make it to the end, sad to say. But they're a happy champion, Gonzalo de Andres. So next year is going to be interesting to see how many of the American drivers want to come back to Europe or race at home. Indeed, how many of the Europeans want to have 2 programs and go to the States, because there's some great circuits out there.
Very exciting news about America, obviously on the cars for next year, and so that's obviously been confirmed. And I think we'll see, yeah, drivers from Europe trying the American market and vice versa. So yeah, so great. And also next year we'll have the pro class coming into the championship. So 2 silver drivers can drive for overall wins. I mean, the gold and bronze, or platinum and bronze Pro-Am will still remain, but we'll have a new class coming into next year as well in Europe.
Which hopefully will encourage even more sort of young guns to come in and treat this a bit like they have done over the years with Lamborghini Super Trofeo, as a chance to learn and progress through GT racing. It shouldn't be seen as a gentleman's sort of amateur championship, should it? It can be a young career driver's path to learn and to progress.
And that's the whole idea on the pro class, of course, to get these. I mean, people like Jaden Kelly and you know, and Alejandro Gephardt and Tommy Pintos. These guys, these are the silver drivers. They're coming through. Of course, they'll become gold and platinum drivers eventually, I'm sure. But yes, to give them a platform to really show their talent in front of the World GT Series.
A very happy Adalberto Baptista there in the orange crash helmet. Gloves off. Gonzalo de Andres with him. And Tommy Pintos goes and says, well done. There is the Albert Jochem's car that arrives into Parc Fermé after Charles Voltzmann's early good stint. And a time penalty was also given to Ryan James for track limits. So 22, the Ollie Webb Ryan James car, which was getting borderline, was ultimately given a penalty. So Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos take the win from Gonzalo de Andres and Alejandro Gephardt. Eric Bechran's third from Albert Jochems and Charles Voltzmann, and then it's Fiona James and Jaden Kelly with Herman Josef Bacchus sixth, winning his class with Kevin Rorscheid. Klaus Halsig and Bradley Ellis end up seventh with their time penalties. Ryan James and Ollie Webb eighth with their penalty. We lost Ron Trenker and Duncan Tappy. Neil Langberg and Ross Kaiser were a couple of laps down, and we lost Rafa Muncherath early on with a bit of damage, which pitched the car off the road. So the cars come down the pit road, and the winning drivers will make their way to the podium shortly, but we might be able to have a word with our race winners. First of all, Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos, who was one of the champion drivers of last season, taking a race win, his third of the year with Adalberto Baptista to round out this season then. So the fans trackside, still got another race to look forward to today. But as the drivers are in Parc Fermé, ready for the podiums, plural, because there'll be one for the Arturas, one for the 570s. The cars will go through scrutineering. And that third place in the championship then confirmed as well. Right, let's hear from our race winners. Antonia is with two very happy drivers.
Tommy, Adalberto, what a special way to end the season.
Well, I think it's the best way to end up. We finished vice champions, winning on the last race, and it was just a very, very good way to finish it.
For sure, Tommy made a very, very good job. He saved the tires for me. Then I could be consistent. It was very hot and the car is so difficult, but a good finish of the season. Thanks.
You've been fantastic this year. Thanks, guys.
So Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos take the win. Tommy possibly a little bit frustrated it wasn't another championship, but race wins nonetheless. And I think he and Alejandro Gephardt have proved themselves worthy of moving on and up in GT racing. So looking there in super slow-mo at the winning car of Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos, and a 1-2 for the Spanish SMC team here on home soil. So a job well done, and the two champions, Alejandro Gephardt and Gonzalo de Andres, are with Antonia.
Guys, what a fantastic year you've had. You've been so dominant and you're the champions. Congratulations.
Thank you. Today's been a tough race with the handicap from yesterday. We had 5 seconds more than the sister car, so we had a difficult job to do in the pit stop. But yeah, it's been a great race today by all the team, and an incredible season that I will always remember, and I'm super, super thankful to everyone. So yeah, now it's time to enjoy and look to the future.
Huge congrats, guys. Go celebrate.
It's going to be fascinating to see what that future is, whether it's in McLarens, whether it's in GT3 or GT4 or GT2. So many opportunities around these days. If the funding is there and if a manufacturer scoops them up with a young driver program, then even better. But Alejandro Gephardt looked really mighty this year.
They did, and how refreshing it is to see also there's so young drivers. You know, when they speak in front of the camera, they're so professional these days. I mean, you know, you forgive a 17-year-old or 18-year-old to say the wrong thing or show some emotions, but yeah, it's just a great champion in Alejandro Gephardt, and yeah, great to see them.
Let's go and hear from our 570 champions next with Antonia.
What a race. And the 570 category, of course, won't be around next year, but a great way to tie it up for you.
Yeah, 100%. We enjoyed every moment this weekend. We had a really good race. Hermann did an amazing job in the second stint. I think we gave everything we had today, and we are very happy that we got P1.
Congratulations, guys. Thank you very much.
Race winners rather than champions. Apologies. Kevin Rohrscheid and Hermann Josef Bacchus taking the 570 class within the race and now making their way up to the podium. The class champions being Ryan James and Ollie Webb, who'd won that in advance of the weekend, but they are, of course, good for the podium in that race as well. Let's look at the highlights of that as we wait for the drivers to get to the podium. Great start being made off the line by the pole position driver, which today was Alejandro Gepet, and he had the advantage going down towards turn one. Tommy Pintos slotting in behind, and Charles Voltzmann was third. Jaden Kelly with a little bit of a rub, got ahead of him, and then there was more contact coming into turn three, and that turned around the Australian, so Jaden Kelly was thrown to the very back of the pack, and he then had to get on with a big fight back, which did begin pretty much instantly. He got past Rafa Muncherath going up through turn 10, and when the pit window opened, the pro drivers had done pretty much their 20 minutes. They had to give way to the AMs, and that threw up some different battles, as Albert Jochems, for example, battled with Klaus Halsig on the run down towards turn one. Jochems being able to go through, ultimately on target for 4th place. We had another good fight between Rafa Muncherath and a car ahead off the road was Neil Langberg. They managed to dodge that. Muncherath in the end was also in the wars, and so too was Ryan James. That car running way out wide at turn 3, possibly with a problem, whereas Eric Berron's car got better and better as the race wore on, and a nice move around the outside to take 3rd away from Albert Jochems before Muncherath had his moment at turn 12 and headbutted the barriers. 5-second penalty for track limit offences compromised Ryan James, but he and Ollie Webb had already won the 570S element of the championship. But for the checkered flag, and the win would be Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos. So over the timing line to win the car of Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos. They're on the podium in the middle to be joined by the SMC team, by Gonzalo de Andres and Tommy Pintos, and also there you can see the 3rd place driver Charles Voltzmann and Albert Jochems on the podium too. So Adalberto Baptista and Tommy Pintos, the race winners. On the podium, you can see getting the trophies, Albert Jochems and Charles Voltzmann, although Eric Berrens was classified 3rd, so there's a slight confusion as to why he's not there. But maybe this is the podium purely for the double driver entries, the Pro-Ams within the Arturas, rather than an AM solo, which is Eric Berrens. So it's not an overall, it's a class podium as such. There, the trophies for the winners, and a really nice job done by Adalberto Baptista in that race and by the SMC team. So congratulations to the champions, and also to our 570 champions, Ollie Webb and Ryan James. The 2nd season of McLaren Trophy Europe has delivered action. It's delivered some really nice, promising young guns for the future as well. And next year, new cars, no doubt new teams, and new venues, and a new championship with an American McLaren Trophy as well at the end of a great season, though, here at Barcelona to round out 2024.